I'm just gonna click it on my phone to make sure I can hear.
Is our agenda?
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, yeah, it sounds working.
Oh, it says board of directors.
Good to go.
Good.
Morning, this is a call to order to the Troy Community Land Bank Directors A and D meeting. The date is December 2nd, 2024. We're going to do a call to order. Andrew Cooper,
Here,
Brian Parker.
Here.
James Mager here. Also in attendance is Executive Director Brad Lewis and Project Manager Paul Donovan. I'm going to motion to start.
We don't need that.
No, they're good. Brian, do we have meetings or minutes from last month?
I have not published them.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. We'll table that. We'll talk about them at the January meeting. So the first. So looking at this agenda last night, before we go into 3215 6th Ave app and the 17 Park Ave list, let's talk about the process, the flow chart before we go and talk about it. Applications and listing stuff. Brad had a flow chart created on the types of ways we can sell a property.
Yeah, I'll take over if you
Go
know.
ahead.
Yeah, so obviously you guys know there was a lot of back and forth trying to figure out exactly what documents are needed to consider an application for A and D. And so this is very raw, and it's like what I gather from the time so far being here. And of course, it doesn't necessarily mirror the Blue Book exactly, because the Blue Book just says application, contract, and I think one other. Paul, would you grab the Blue Book in there so we can talk about that? But from what I recognize, there's multiple different ways we sell a building, and it's either unfinished or finished. It's vacant lot or development site or a side lot. And I just wanted to sort of get the committee and the board on board with what you guys expect. Me and Paul on board with what you guys expect to see to make a sale. So I sort of created this, and I'm, like I said, it's rough draft, it's raw, and I'm open to any sort of changes that maybe we can make.
So the one that jumped out at me.
Yes.
Is for Habitat.
Yep.
Contract when they're ready.
That's just what I saw on the last. I mean, we just executed.
So-
a sale.
So we're gonna use the.
This is the board's decision.
yeah, I immediately was looking at that too, and like, I just know we've had, I don't know about Habitat partnerships, but partnerships in general.
Yeah.
Have been, complicated in terms of who's committing first, like,
Right.
other parties want us to.
Get it to plan. get it
Yeah,
approved.
do stuff before they do stuff, but we're like, we're not doing anything until you do something. So I've never been super clear on the process. I'll say that, but it is,
I mean, I might make that more generic, just say co-development agreement.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Because that could happen, that same Habitat kind of thing could happen with any responsible, affordable housing developer.
So, but then when it says contract when they're ready, because that's what it seemed to be in this particular partnership, should,
Yeah.
is
Well,
it
Habitat-
always them?
They're
Or is it-
securing funds, they're applying for HCR monies,
Yeah,
right? So they can't get going until they secure those. So it's kind of like you said, there's.
I just know that's
When
what's
money comes in,
happening.
you start,
mhm. So, it's not really contract when they're ready, it's when the agreement is set, but we can still consider it. So what I'm saying is, like, we had 79 Park, we just closed on it.
Yeah.
We want that project, everybody likes that project because it's gonna create 4 housing units and owner occupied. But our typical process is, in here, but of course, there's a discounted preference program that we have listed on the side here. And item 6.7 says additional discount preference programs, and I think this would be a co-development preference program where the process is a little different. And so we can just take contract when they're ready and change it to contract when the deal is completely ironed out.
Yeah, I understand contract when they're ready, and I understand why we're doing
But
that.
that's just what I,
Just
that's what I saw.
the verbiage of that. Like I guess. Is there a process for co-development projects? Is that process spelled out differently?
Not yet. I don't
I
think.
think we've only done them with Habitat,
Yeah.
but
So maybe we, on this flow chart, address it as a co-development, but I guess it shouldn't be a habitat
Well, yeah.
partnership. It should be co-development partnerships, habitat being an example.
Yeah.
of one.
Yeah,
Right.
I can put I.E. habitat.
Yeah.
And
Cause
of
this
course-
is gonna be on the website, correct? Or this
I
already
think-
is?
I think it could be beneficial to have people see like
Yeah,
what they need,
okay. That's what I was anticipating.
you know what I mean?
Contract when they are ready on the website for these other people to see is not.
But
We
it's
need
the same time,
to class it up a little.
Yeah, it's a little.
That's it.
it's just say like contract executed in mutual partnership or something
Yeah.
like that, or I don't know.
More legal
Yeah.
mumbo jumbo. Ask Matt to, or John to weigh in.
Well, yeah, we want to be careful that we're not like
But I think call it.
committing
co-development.
something by putting this publicly.
By
That we-
mutual agreement.
Yeah, yeah, by mutual agreement, I like here.
Contract executed by mutual agreement.
But other than that, I think they're spelled out. It gives us something to go by when we go
Yeah.
talking about these other two problems.
Yeah, so when we're talking about the rehab, I just want to mention this versus the finished house. I just saw it as two different things. For instance, an enforcement mortgage is like, if you don't fix it, we're taking it back. But a finished house is already fixed. So why should they be given a 14-page document that says you got to fix what's already fixed? And so it just makes,
Are there any other contingencies outside?
Right, that would be the question.
yes, and if you look on there, there's like the affordable income or rent restrictions. So whether you're renting or you're owner occupied, whatever our restrictions are for the property when we sell it to them, you still need an application and contract, and then you need to know, like, if you're gonna live there, your income restrictions, and if you're gonna rent it, you need to know the rent restrictions. But, there's a level of finishes guideline that the building's done, so it's like, how big a room, that's spelled out in our finishes guideline, is how big a room should be, but we've already built it out in this finished house example. So that's why I took those two,
Finished house, as you were thinking, was one.
Well,
Well, sure.
Yeah.
And the one we have finished.
right, yeah,
I don't know how it would happen, but is it conceivable we wouldn't have a finished house that we didn't finish? Like, it's just good to go
Yeah.
somehow that we
It's
are
possible,
selling.
yeah.
In which case,
791.
well,
No,
I mean,
finished.
we're responsible for that one. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not responsible.
Okay.
It's possible,
And
like,
so does that change? Would we sell something and say, this is finished, but it's not finished to our standard and we still want it changed? I'm
Yeah.
stretching.
yeah. And we might classify that as a rehab.
Maybe, I guess that would be a rehab. then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then it would just fall under the other.
Like,
the other tab.
like imagine the storage house is an example of when they moved back and they put a new foundation. I assume it was all done. And they reconnected all the utilities and just gave it to the land bank. Ryan, you might know more about that.
I remember it, but
We did a fair amount of work, 'cause I remember looking
Yeah,
at
that was-
the back deck, which we rebuilt.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like, what? We built that? It was not.
I wasn't on the thing then, but
Yeah.
there was work.
Yeah, we did
Yeah,
work. in
work
there.
did some
I think we did all new heating system in there too.
Okay.
Um,
So maybe we do not have a finished house that we didn't.
Yeah,
Do
I don't
something
know,
to-
but I think that was a fair point to say, well, if something needs to be updated, then it's a rehab.
We
It
haven't
falls
put
under
the
rehab.
water line.
Oh, yeah. They had to put the water on.
There was a lot of stuff.
They couldn't do anything until they had water.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to at least just read what the book says, because I think that what we have to do is probably present new words to the board, take out page 4 and insert page 4 type thing for the book. But page 4 says, we should develop a purchase application form which applicants are required to complete so land bank can evaluate the qualifications of the applicants and select applicants with development plans that are consistent with the mission and purpose and comprehensive plans of the municipality in which the land bank's real property is located. The property land bank is intending to sell. The land bank may require them to submit redevelopment plans, management plans as part of the application process. The land bank shall require applicants to submit a contract to purchase with each application. In addition, the land bank shall require applicants to submit a $500 good faith deposit, $25 of which shall be non-refundable with each application. Except that applications to purchase residential side lots and community gardens will only require $25 application.
You say community gardens?
Yeah, that'd be the side lot program. I should probably add
Okay.
community garden there. But which different there is we're asking for 5% in our current application and $30 per applicant. And $30 for the application fee. The applicant part is the background check. The fee is just the process, the board resource, so you guys are coming in to consider something. And so in their binder, it says $500, not 5%. And it says $25 fee, and it doesn't talk about a background check fee. So I think we need to modify that to reflect what our application says.
Should agree with the application, I guess, or the application. should-
Has to agree with the board.
Yeah,
Yeah, unless there, I mean, my only thought is, is there some other standard in effect outside of, like, is there anything that's not in the book that's under the city charter or, I don't know, whatever,
yeah.
land banks legislation that says something somewhere that I don't know about?
Has the attorney gone through that yet?
The attorney hasn't. I mean, this particular thing, this is the section I sent to our old attorney, which was told to me that it's not affecting the whole, whatever part of it needs to be rewritten. And I think that the point of that is these fees aren't making sense, And just like the side lot we sold, they didn't provide us with a contract. But that's, so I just want to get the process down. So that way, when I convey it to a potential purchaser, they're not sort of, rope-a-doped into this whole process that they don't understand and create so much friction that they're not interested in even moving forward.
Right, and Leo would need to be kept up to date on that as well, or whoever our realtor might be at that time.
If we can recommend, we fine tweak this, we recommend this to the board later this month. Have the attorney review the process, make sure there's things that aren't missing or needs to be taken out. And then I'd say we adopt this process and change whatever different in that blue book. You saw that, but also
I would, see, my thought is the blue book should get updated first.
well, that we would be updating it with this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I know, so it all has to be consistent. I was just
Right.
thinking like, there's more detail in the book than
Yeah.
is here. So
Yeah.
I was thinking, so the attorney,
I was eyeballing it, but
like, we'll make updates there.
Mhm.
Confirm those are
accurate.
acceptable, accurate, and make sure that feeds into this, because this is a more simplified.
Right, and if
Like that's-
we could take this 3-hole punch it, tell everybody, put it at the end of 7 before 8 starts.
Yeah.
As an addendum to,
I think this is great, I have something more visual.
For the public, this kind of thing, I think
Yeah.
is super helpful, yeah. Because it does convey, hey, there's a complicated process, but it's not like, here, read these 38 pages and that's what you gotta do. Which is, to your point, why people would be like, I'm not doing it.
Right.
Find something else.
Yeah, so I can just change, try to make adjustments to page 4 here on the application part of it to reflect what our application is. That's the way we've been doing it with this application. I just think that nobody had the bandwidth or took the time to amend what was already amended, either procedurally.
Yeah, like where did those changes, so did the book get changed, but the application not,
I
or
think
did the
the book is
application get
original.
changed and the book didn't?
Right, I think the
Yeah.
book's original, and I think that as the institution changed, people probably didn't refer back to the book.
Yeah.
They didn't hold the operation of the book as we gotta make sure this is right, so that way, if anybody was to come in and say, we wanna know what your process is, and we can provide them with one of our books at that point. So that's what I'd like to do in terms of, and I'd like to do that with a lot of different things, but for acquisition disposition, that's what I'd like to at least have the process mapped out for people so that when they come, we can do things a little more seamlessly.
Yeah, I think the application, the application of this. You go through it, make your changes, send it over to the attorney,
Now,
get everything talking to one another.
yeah, and one thing I just wrote, unlikely on vacant lot development site. Am I, obviously I can change that.
Yeah, publicly, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
There was a couple things that I wrote as sort of like
Well,
to
right,
get
I
people
understand,
talking.
development process
this
here,
is
yeah.
But like typically people are gonna buy a lot of land to build on from the land bank. Typically, there might be a situation where there's three buildings that say catch on fire downtown and it opens up this spot and the bank holds onto it forever. Then they finally just give up and give it to the land bank because they need to get it off their books. And if somebody really wants to build something interesting there and they want to live there. There's a possibility, so I think it's unlikely that somebody's gonna buy a plot of land from us to develop it from us. But we should know what we need to have, like an application at that point. Before, I can mirror the same thing, but they need to know the restrictions on
Yeah,
their
wouldn't
income.
it be the AMI affordable instead of rent?
Rent,
Rent restrictions, it's just income restrictions, right?
But now let's talk about that. So you're gonna spec build a building, but not make more than the area median income.
Yeah, well, I agree, it's unlikely.
Right.
What is the
I
property,
don't know how that works.
what's the property on Sixth Ave? With the wooden clapboards, the wooden, siding, 4 stories?
4 stories, yes, but they're not living there, they're renting it.
They don't live in one of those suites?
Maybe they do, but if we needed them to be income restricted, it's unlikely that they're making less than the area median income. And I think that's where it comes into sort of the discussion of the 80-20 that we agreed upon at the inception of the organization. But I don't know if the money that we agreed upon at the inception of the organization dictates the rest of the organization forever. I know the heart of the land bank is affordable housing. It's not to just, create sort of the word gentrification comes to mind. I don't know if that's exactly what it is. It's supposed to be the antithesis of that to allow for everyday people to be able to afford housing. But there are situations where we might have a building that only makes sense not affordable. And I don't know where the board sees the distinction of whether we're going to maintain 80-20, but right now it seems like we're 100%. I'm okay with it. I just need direction on that because it wouldn't be unlikely if we weren't 100%.
Yeah, I don't think,
I mean, it would depend how much activity we have, right? Like,
Right.
that could be easier to have happen.
Right.
I believe that property is a perfect example because it was advertised and it was my understanding that they were living there. That is a residence for them. They might have a residence in New York,
Okay.
but that is also their residence. And I believe that the other apartment meets the affordable housing restriction. It's a big number, but I think it's a 3-bedroom. So if we look at those numbers, the breakouts, I think they fall within that affordable housing.
And you're talking because we sold them that land.
We sold that lot to those.
Which lot we talking about now?
Corner of Sixth Ave.
It's a 4-story.
It sticks out like a sore
Skinny
thumb.
house.
Yes. Business Review had it as a land bank lots.
Yeah, that was our second.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah, we approved that.
that built. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they decided they just finished it. And so there probably should be a lien still on it, right?
I don't.
Oh,
through us?
From
From us, right? The enforcement order,
the enforcement or the
Yeah.
reverter, yeah.
in which they,
Yeah, we still have to.
Yeah, it's 5 years, right? Isn't it? Something like that.
well, the question is if there's not a lien on it, well, so they would want to get a CO, which I think they just finished, and then we would take the lien off, but you can't really refinance it. And most people want to pull their money back out once they're done with the project to at least get financing at a low interest rate to use the equity on the building. So they would have to own it free and clear, or we never filed the enforcement mortgage. But because they would trigger us, they would be asking for us to.
It's
At least-
likely that we
we
have
have to
not
do it.
done the enforcement. piece,
Right.
Because we were doing nothing for such a long time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I know that one building, 33256 had that same issue where the person wanted an inspection and I went and looked and I said to them, you guys got to get the CO and you have no stickers on your electrical panels and They ended up getting both of those, and then they paid the attorney to remove the enforcement lien. And so it's a cost they incurred to do it. But in that case, the question is, maybe when I say AMI affordable rent restrictions, the board has to decide if we do, if any, on that sort of thing, in parentheses, if any, if a specific building is restricted, like according to our ARPA contract, it's lists all the buildings that we have earmarked as affordable housing. There's 2 on there that we didn't list as affordable, and that's 32 Glen Avenue and 871 River Street. Both of those are not on our ARPA contract as affordable earmark. I don't know what the trajectory of those or the strategy of those are, but I think it's incumbent on this committee to make the recommendation to the full board to say what we're doing with each building that we own. I think it goes through this committee and then voted on at the full board. So if our strategy on 32 Glen is to build a building that's affordable housing.
Yeah.
You know, if it's to just finish the roof and the foundation, then put it for sale to somebody with a restriction. I think this committee creates that restriction. That's my instinct and my understanding.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I think that it would be good, like when we were doing enforcement stuff, it was always, through council, pretty much. And it might be good to have another one of these things about enforcement that go through with that.
Mhm.
And, just.
Yeah, I've never been clear on how the follow-up works,
Yeah.
because for years,
Yeah,
right? Who's paying attention to that?
right.
I mean,
That's my job. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess
I think
you,
we're
but
required to go
but how does that?
periodically.
Yeah, and that's in our
Oh, is
application.
it? Okay, I
Well,
guess I just have never been aware of it.
It's sort of my frustration is it wasn't spelled out, but you know, and you try to keep everything in a positive light, but these are sort of the procedures for our enforcement.
Yeah.
And this is, I just printed this off the way it was given to me. This is edited. I've edited it and changed it to send it out to people. And then we have a monthly progress report that people.
This is during
This is
development though,
So
right?
this is what our developers, you know, and I say developers in a loose sense of
Sure,
like,
yeah.
this is what our developers would be expected. And when I say it's a 39-page application, a lot of it's just this. This is what you should expect to see, not necessarily like
It's
anything.
more informal.
You don't have to fill it out. You know, there's a sample contract in here.
Yeah, this part here, section 3, enforcement procedures, and it has monitoring, reporting, inspection.
Shall monitor. Well, I remember, and I mean, I even went and looked at a few places that were,
There's another.
rehab stuff.
Yeah.
But after like projects finish, I've never been, like, how often do we?
This goes before it, which shows you the schedule at the bottom.
Yeah, I have not been involved with enforcement at all. Like,
The city used to be 10 years with the writ of reverter. And they did, I remember purchasing a property years ago
Mhm.
from a woman, and it appeared as a lien.
Yeah.
So before I could make the transaction complete, we had to get the city to remove the writ of reverter, which was well outdated from 10 years. It was like 20 years ago.
Mhm.
But that's what we were able to do. And they just walked in and did
Yeah.
a quick inspection. Walked out.
Yeah, and the city's reverter isn't 10 years now. What it is once you've accomplished what you put on your application, they'll take it off. For instance, I sold a side lot this year to somebody, and in my application, when I bought it from the city, I had listed that I was going to cut down the grass or cut down the vegetation and grass and just maintain it as a yard.
Sure.
And at the time, there was dirt on the ground, so they required me to plant seed and put straw down, and then and in past situations where I bought foreclosures, you know, you'd have to show a CO. What you show the CO they're happy. We're a little bit more aggressive in that we're gonna go check finishes. We have opinions on the way the building should look. And if we don't like the progress, I think that we're more aggressive in taking back. In fact, we've actually successfully done that. I don't think the city's interested. They're strategy seems to be, as long as the taxes are coming back in, they're happy to give you the time necessary to fix the building. As shown, for example, I mean, this isn't unfounded, but like the South End Tavern is sold years ago and it doesn't look much different today. They've done a lot of work, I'm sure, inside, but it doesn't look much different or any closer than it was when they bought it 3 or 4 years ago. So yeah, we had this enforcement addendum, and that's part of like the documents, when I first took over, if you click the purchase application at the top of the page, it just gave you the first 13 pages of the application, but there these enforcements, the schedule, the progress reports that I'll have to be filling out when we sell things. It's a little bit more, work than just letting it go and then saying, have fun to a contractor. It's more work on our end and they are held more accountable, which is good. But of course, we're not gonna go to a finished department like 791 and say, I'm gonna come check to see what you've done in the last month, because we assume it's all done, which is why I said we take those parts out of the contract, the finished portion. And of course, yeah, I don't hear a strategy for affordable versus unaffordable, if there are any situations where we're considering that, or if the board or A&D committee's trajectory is to just be affordable. That clarity will help me a lot to communicate with potential buyers.
What I would struggle with on that is that I think 80-20 is fine. There are times that it might make sense to have a more commercial focus, sale or whatever. But how do you know when you're 20%? When, so like, it's you sort of have to plan from the start of the year and say, well, the first, however many, we can't consider a non-affordable until we've done, 5 or done 200,000 or 500,000 or whatever the metric is.
Right.
I feel like the only way we could be confident that we're within that standard is to have that kind of plan, like some way of measuring as we go, which seems like it's not an effective way to work. But I don't know how else we do it. I mean, that's my first thought. Like,
now, the way the original funding said was that it was 80% of the projects from the funding would be affordable, 20% didn't have to be. And I think from the A&D committee could easily say currently we have 13 projects, right? You can make all 13 affordable. You can make 11 of them earmarked affordable, but when I provide these people their restrictions, it's coming from what we decided our law, the land bank law says we need to have a strategy for each building. And so that's where the decision of whether it's affordable project or not comes from, not the sale per se, but in my mind. And it also is only restricted by the grant that we've already used. So we have nobody forcing us. It's the board's strategy at this point until we take on grant money that forces us.
Isn't the threshold for affordable for us pretty high?
Yeah.
it is pretty high.
It's in name.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you specifically concerned about affordable rents or affordable or?
I am just trying to get the words to tell the potential people when they come to me what the project is.
Yeah.
Each building.
Because there's a lot of misconceptions about affordable
Right,
housing.
right,
It's
sure.
subsidized housing.
Yes.
It's not subsidized housing. It's affordable housing.
And I'm able to communicate that easily. But when I look at a building like 32 Glen that's not listed on ARPA, I don't know the strategy to it. So if somebody comes and says, is this restricted or not? I can't answer that question because the board has to answer.
So to take those two examples that haven't been strategized yet, 32 Glen and 871 River. I would suggest 32 Glen probably goes back to becoming affordable housing, right? Because it fits into that wheelhouse for an owner occupied person who would be easily be able to adhere to these guidelines. 871, more of a development site, we might be handcuffing ourselves to the potential projects coming to the neighborhood. That's 5 lots.
Well, right, but you have to have a strategy for the 5, or if you separate them or something like that.
Well, just thinking, I would say the 871 is one package. Give that one. Your strategy, come up with a strategy for that whole parcel. as it's,
Like the big lot.
the
thing.
big down River Street,
I
right?
mean, you can give that the same restriction that we have. Like if the developer wants to come in, they do 80-20.
Yeah, if they're doing 10 units, then 2 have to be,
For
you
the
know,
contract.
Yeah, you could do,
Yeah.
and that strategy, like, for right now, we just have it listed for sale, but I don't know what to tell people. So we need to make recommendations. You
They
know,
do that, ICR does that all
Yeah,
the time.
yeah,
I mean, you have to have so much affordable, so much supportive housing, so much, you know.
and they did it at the Lion Factory building, the
Yeah.
standard manufacturing building, they did like 60 units and 3 were,
Yeah.
or 4 were affordable or some percentage to get their money.
Yeah,
So,
I'd say for the big projects, if you're just gonna develop like a bunch of land, just give it the same restriction that we live under.
Right. And so right now, I'm just sort of broad brushstroke telling everybody it's affordable. And that's just where I'm landing in terms of having clarity. It's the safest way to communicate. But of course, I haven't found any documentation for those specifically. 871, the vacant lots there, the vacant lots of 6th Ave and 32 Glen, I haven't found anything to tell me different. And tell me one way or the other, I should say.
yeah, so basically we need our whole portfolio to be classified.
Ahead of
Like we have to go through everything and,
Well, I
Right,
think
one
the
way or-
first 11 are.
We have 2.
Well,
Just for that, but correct, going, say January 1 comes and all Amir Poppins and 10 more dumped on us.
Yeah.
Yes, we as an A and D committee should meet and earmark either all 10 are
Yeah.
affordable or the same thing, 8 and 2, right? But we need to classify each one individually.
And just, not that I'm advocating for this, but just to clarify, you don't have the funding that restricts the percentage you have anymore. So we can do 70-30, we can do 100-0. It's completely up to the board is what I'm saying. Is that your strategy? I assume the process is your strategy recommended to the board adopts the strategy for the building. And that's the same with acquisitions, and that's when it really should happen, it's during acquisition phase. We, by the land bank law, we can't acquire buildings without a strategy for redevelopment. And so if we want to take the phase 2 money and buy a building that's falling down and alleviate a neighborhood's problem, which is a strategy, I think is a positive strategy. We need to tell the full board from the A&D committee what the strategy for that building is, or redevelopment. For instance, we're gonna buy it, we're gonna put a new roof and a foundation on it, and then we're going to market it for sale for a developer, and we're gonna restrict it to affordable housing. Or income, or owner occupied with an income restriction. That would be the narrative that we would present from A&D to the full board, and then when we buy it, that restriction holds it.
Yeah.
Like I said, with
I think
13,
that's right. I mean, I think it's just a simple menu, A, B, C, D, and we're gonna do A or B or C, D, and you go. 'Cause I don't wanna have to deliberate over something that we're kind of doing over and over and over again anyway.
Yeah.
Just do it, it's like,
yeah,
to me, it's kind of like.
Yeah.
There's a lot of common sense about how you approach it,
and the other thing with some of the buildings that we had were restricted. We bought them acquired for legacy program, but the legacy program didn't get off its feet and it was canceled. And so now we are left with those buildings, and with our last A&D meeting, we
Right.
made decisions to list some for sale and fix up some to stabilize them.
Yep.
And that's now their strategy. Had I had more years under my belt here, I might have said, okay, we're still doing affordable, right? And that would clarify.
yeah, I was just thinking like if we've gone ahead with a project. So we make a decision, this is classified to A, B, or C, and here's a project that fits it, and then the project falls apart. Do we then need to revisit that? Like, I feel like that should be a standard practice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Once but I don't know what point we reclassify, or do we annually reconsider everything that's on the books? Or
Are we able to reclassify things throughout the year if things come up?
Yeah.
So at every A&D meeting, we could go through our list of 13 properties and say, well, we had somebody show interest. We could.
I think so, yeah. I mean,
I think we need to be careful not.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have like a process and then be like, well, today we just changed the.
Yeah.
No,
But
I'm
a-
only
A
saying,
compelling reason, I feel like we need
Correct.
some,
I just want to make
something
sure
to
it's
point to,
something
to say, oh,
legal.
this is the.
Except, I don't think we should every month say, oh, it didn't work this way, so let's
Mhm.
change
Yeah.
it. But if somebody, a viable developer or homeowner or applicant
Mhm.
comes through the door and it helps and it makes sense and the story's right, as long as we're able to to vote on it, then we
Yeah.
understand that that's there.
Yeah, for instance, you got also out of the two that are earmarked, Glen and A71 that are not earmarked yet. What we're doing, 785 River Street is another one where that building was condemned to be knocked over. We just put a roof on it
Yeah.
and it's structurally fine,
That's right.
except doesn't
That's
have
a-
subfloors. We gotta put the subfloors down, but once we do that, then it's a complete shell ready
That's a
to
good
develop.
That's a good bill.
So you have a 3 unit there that the neighbors next door want to buy it from us, which they were also the people that were involved with Legacy, so I'm not sure how serious that is, but people are interested in a shell to get something off the ground, and that's 3 units of housing
Yeah.
that are potential to be fixed. But we had that thing down to the ground and we're just gonna dispose of the lot. We've changed our trajectory on that.
My suggestion to the committee is that we leave 32 Glen and 871 as open to the 20%. Only because it's been like that for now. It doesn't mean somebody can't come in and make it affordable.
Hmm.
But it allows somebody to come in and do it on, because I just pulled up 32 Glen, right? I just pulled up the picture. Like that's gonna be a bear renovation. Like that's the place that got the synthetic slate,
yeah.
correct? So you might get an out of towner to come up here and throw a ton of money into that place, not knowing the neighborhood, and want to live there, right? You never know.
Mhm.
It hasn't been earmarked anyways, right? So we're really not losing anything. 871, I think could be a viable development site that would be perfect for what you stated, right?
You know, maybe we take it one building at a time, but 32 Glen, I'm gonna step it out, like, for you guys to decide. But if somebody was to buy it and wants to live here, that's gonna be your biggest question. If somebody making $120,000 a year, and it's a two, you know, hitch, husband and wife duo, they wanna live here, and they make 120,000 a year and they wanna rent upstairs, they would not qualify to buy that building. So when you restrict buildings like that, you're removing owner occupied people that are going to have higher incomes. That's really what we're doing with that. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the rent amounts, finding somebody that makes less than the
Yeah,
117 is easy to do because that's workforce people. Everybody needs an apartment. Most of the apartments I rent to, people are making less than that amount of money. So an out of town developer is going to easily scoop up a restricted property, and person moving into it finding themselves their first home with a rent at the top. If we're not going all the way, it's going to have to be somebody who'd want to have to live there. So I think you're going to find that affordable restriction is just going to remove the owner occupied part of it in certain neighborhoods. If you did the affordable restriction, say in Hillview Heights, like where we had the 24 McClellan, you're now making sure workforce people get it, not somebody who's maybe working remote from New York City as a second home. I don't know why Hillview Heights comes to mind for that, but there are people that came up during the pandemic to live in Troy, and they were bringing in more than the 100 and something AMI. So whatever decision you want to make with Glen is fine. Because I think inevitably the rents are going to be affordable. Because
No matter
the
what.
market is lower than 100% affordable.
I'm thinking for that house. Again, for owner occupied is how neighborhoods are gonna be rebuilt. Looking at that house. If you make 120 or under, you're not gonna qualify for a note. Large enough to renovate that. Is my mindset.
Well, I don't think you're going to qualify for a note until the building's complete. With most of the projects we do, the people have to finance them some other way. Whether doing it sweat equity or doing it with, well, right, but a lot of times with our lien on it,
Right.
they're not gonna get a loan from the building. So they have to be somebody that has some money, or they have to be somebody that has access to, borrowing it from someone else, hard money lender or something, or, mom and dad, if you're lucky enough or privileged enough in that way. But, that it's sort of there's a natural affordability or a restrictive component to some of our buildings. So whether it's affordable or not is,
Just shooting it out there. So we talk about affordable, we all know what the definition of that is based on incomes. Then we talk about a whole other thing, which is owner occupied. Would it be wrong to give an advantage to somebody who's gonna go in there and have it owner occupied? In other words, less restrictions as far as affordable. So if a couple, like you say, from out of town comes in and they make $150,000 a year, but they plan to live there and they plan to be a part of the community, does that weigh in heavier for us than
It doesn't.
than shipping it to affordable?
I think so, yeah. I mean, that's been owner occupancy.
And again,
has
I'm
always been
throwing this out there as a curveball, but you know, as somebody who's been in the city forever, that's what we're missing is more owner occupied. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we want. And if an investor can come in and rent to affordable, that's good. But if somebody's owner occ, it's way better.
and I think there's, in our blue book, there are different special programs. We have one of them's owner occupied. So if the board has this, you have this in your toolbox, you can restrict something to be an owner occupied redevelopment program. The more you restrict something, the harder it's gonna be to find somebody to get it to
Yeah.
sell, but you could totally say, you know, we're gonna hold on to it for an owner occupied person and give a discount or preference for that. We have accept applications for otherwise, but we have a preference for that. In the blue book, it defines it as a discount or preference program.
So we can discount the price then.
You can discount the
We're
price.
required to offer a market rate,
Yes, by law, we can sell
but we
everything in
can
market.
discount it
Yeah.
for a specific land bank purpose.
And our land bank self-imposes the restriction of affordable. Cause you guys could just make everything open market and discount for affordable and discount for owner occupied, but we're self-imposing restrictions ahead of time on the buildings. Our blue book defines all of our buildings, and the land bank law says all our buildings have to be at market.
Yeah.
Unless they're part of our discount programs, in which case we can,
Right.
Lower
That's
the-
where the subsidy comes from.
Right.
We decided to discount.
yeah,
That's fine. I have no problem favoring owner occupied. I think that's what we've always
Yes.
wanted. We've always wanted that. I mean, we're kind of putting like, you guys, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys have freedom to make decisions about this stuff. You bring it to us, we talk it through, and then you're done. You like go, you put it before the board, you go.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not. The committee is meant as kind of like a. Right, it's a council to recommend something to the board, you know, but you guys are kind of at the head of the,
Mhm.
you know, the initiative
Yeah.
to say, okay, we want to do this, and this is
Mhm.
why, what do you think?
yeah.
And we say, that sounds great.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that being your approach. Like, I feel like you're being very tentative, like, I don't wanna tell you guys what to do.
Well-
And I appreciate that, but I think, you know, I mean, this is the first I've been on the A&D, so,
Okay,
you know. I
But as
think-
the ED, you kind of have that
Mhm.
authority to say, okay, this is how I want to execute.
What to recommend?
But yeah, in Brian's perspective there, that's how I sort of thought this works. is,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
We don't need to be the ones.
And I realize you're still getting your head around all
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
all the processes and all that stuff. Pick our brains as much as we can give you, even though my memory's going on the old stuff.
Right.
But, you know,
Same.
yeah,
I think a lot of it is, just do it.
okay, gotcha. So if that's the case, you
I
know,
don't want to sound like, I'm not being disrespectful, I trust you guys.
right,
So as a follow-up on the owner occupied preference or discount or program, or whatever. So what I wonder is if we can, is it okay to present properties, list them as an either or?
Yeah.
Like, because when we started sort of discussing, like, we're classifying each property as, you know, this way or that way or whatever. But we sort of want that flexibility because, you know, what's in the best interest of land bank. And I mean, I'm also thinking about, sustainability, like, you know, some projects might provide more support to the land bank than others, you know, and we probably need some of those depending on, you know, all sorts of other. over, whatever can happen in the future. So I don't know if that's a challenge to have like, oh, this is the, so, well, here's, I guess, this is my question. Is, say, the owner occupancy discount program per property, or is that a blanket? Like, can that apply to any property? So like, here's a property, there's our listings.
I think it's per property. Right?
Do we have to identify a particular property as like, if you're an owner occupant, talk to us about a subsidy?
I think owner occupant should apply to anyone. Excuse me.
I mean, I agree, it should. I'm just not sure how.
As far as how much we discount.
Yeah,
I think
like-
that's up to.
So
Well-
it's pretty clear right here.
Okay,
The land banks adopted the following discount and preference programs in order to support through the sale of land bank property, private development activities which further their mission. First one, homeowner choice program. The land bank may list certain properties as only available for sale to applicants who plan to occupy the property as a principal residence, or will renovate the property and sell to a buyer who will occupy the property as a principal residence. Which means, we're selling it or listing it for sale that way. This program may be applied to properties being disposed of pursuant to this policy, which are move-in ready or require only minimal renovation. So say that again, the program may be applied to properties being disposed of pursuant to this policy, which are move-in ready or require only minimal renovation. So that allows us to get to the finish line listed for sale with a lot, maybe 150,000 for a two-family, that's all done. Or the storage one where there's just a little bit to fix up or something like that. Such promise to occupy the principal residence shall be secured with a second mortgage on the property in the amount of $5,000, which will provide that amount shall be repayable in full should the applicant or subsequent buyer move or sell the property within 5 years of taking ownership. So that means they're sort of like, you owe us $5,000 if you
Sounds
don't
familiar.
move forward.
yeah,
So we can impose this on somebody.
That's the penalty if they do not do owner occupied.
Right, so, you probably don't wanna give them a $100,000 discount to then
Right.
whack them with 5,000.
yeah, because they're like. oh,
Right.
But I don't,
that's fine, right?
let's not boil in the ocean.
Yeah, right.
Back in the day, who cares?
It's like a Habitat house. Like Habitat's house are highly subsidized, right?
Mhm.
To make them affordable for people with, I don't know what percentage they work on for the.
Mhm.
Well, and they do the sweat equity thing too, so like
They
that's,
They do some.
there's another part of it.
But they're putting in like, they might put 350 into a unit and sell it for like, 220,
Right, right.
Just,
and they
again,
absorb it.
shooting out there. You said that it was $5,000 and someone could take advantage of that potentially by not doing it because of the spread. What if you made the spread, meaning the $5,000, equivalent to the discount that they received from us for doing it as an owner op? You follow me?
You would have to potentially modify the blue book, which is okay, but I think that's going through committee to the full board, which means you can change the 5,000. And you could also, there's a line at the end that says, any and all programs that the committee or board wants to move forward with. So you can easily modify that.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a 10-year-old book.
I was gonna say, that's not a just for
But again, if it's equivalent to the discount, someone is more, their hands are held to the fire.
Yeah.
There's no way for them to just wiggle
Right, you
out.
try to
Say,
make
here's your
that-
$5,000. Meanwhile, I got a $25,000 discount.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If obviously we haven't made any motions or votes at this meeting, but you guys as a committee want me to make some of those changes in that portion of it to change 5,000 to, the discount that is voted on in the committee or something like that. We can definitely do that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we started putting together all those policies, we did drafts, and then we gave them to Kate. Kate kind of made them, and so maybe that's a similar process. Like, change, it's like, hey, Matt, think of these changes.
Well, yeah, is there a policy on changing the policies? Like, is there a process we have to follow? So, I mean, certainly legal, I think review it.
Yeah, I think board.
And then board approval, yeah.
But yeah, anything you want to tinker with that makes the wheels go.
Yeah.
I think it's worth tinkering.
Yeah, I would welcome, one more thing for you to work on. Suggestions of draft changes.
Yeah,
Either pre or post legal review.
Yep.
I don't know if the order matters there, then we could then look at, well, if it's A&D, we look at it, otherwise it goes,
Mm.
to the committee, whatever committee or board.
Yeah. Especially if they think something's like a roadblock or an obstacle to.
Right.
To get things.
or really not really a roadblock in the case of $5,000.
Yeah, right, but it should be.
So
Right.
I'll make a motion to allow Brad to go through the vote
Yeah,
and make whatever recommendations to the board to have met in our policy and procedures
Related to.
related to
A&D.
AD. Yeah,
and then present at the next A&D meeting.
Yeah, however, like whatever order works, it might take longer, especially with December holidays and everything. I'll second that.
all in favor?
I,
And so that'll include adding this to the book too.
Yeah.
yeah, that would be one of the suggested changes.
And I know we already moved on from it, but Brian, what was the other flow chart you would have liked to see?
Enforcement.
Yeah, the other thing you brought out. Could you reach out to?
Yeah, I can get something. over
That
there.
enforcement mechanism that you have, that should also be as an.
And something more visual.
Something visual in the blue book. And on the website, once attorney reviews this. All right,
So
so,
everything I bring to the next A&D meeting. Which I have in January.
I'm gonna skip over the 3215 application first, because Park Ave is easier. Can I get a motion to recommend to the board to list 17 Park Ave for sale? That was, property the roof was just on, correct?
Yes, everything's done. Well,
I'll
no,
motion.
we're doing the East Foundation walling.
No,
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Wrong address.
That's
Go
good.
ahead. That's Glenn.
Right, so
Excuse me.
Park's roof is done, weather tight,
Totally,
ready to go to market.
totally.
I'll motion that we put 17 Park Ave for sale. This
you
is
get a second, then you get a discussion of possibly the price.
Yeah.
You know,
You want, we would do that here.
talk about,
I
we
mean,
can talk about how you want to do it. But you got first and second, so.
I believe my recommendation to the committee is we make this recommendation, make the recommendation to the board to sell it and use the advice and experience from all and certain board members as what the price of it. I believe to pay brokerage fees, I think he can list this property. At least test it out, right? Because now it's, we got traction on 3215. We have an application just through the website.
We have application.
We have an application for 834, 836.
Incomplete, yes, doesn't have all the documents necessary, and that particular person is coming up today or tomorrow to tour a couple of different properties. The developers are creeping our site, checking it out and seeing what we have listed. If we had better pictures, if, we
Right.
described it better.
There's a lot of,
So your suggestion is that we can get a market rate price or
I
whatever
believe
without
yes.
involving a realtor and
because
therefore save realtor fees.
I think so, yeah. I think we should at least, maybe the board decides, maybe we give it 30 days off the open market.
Do
Maybe,
we have any sense that how our realtor would, like, are they gonna take offense?
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know.
it's gonna be a non.
It's not gonna be a big, right.
So first off,
Anti-commercial.
we've already established that we list properties online for sale. Second thing is, she told me that she's planning to spend, $5,000 worth of labor, effort, time, and
Per-
just, that's usually, she's like, it's like $5,000 to $7,000 per building.
She can't get that back.
Yeah,
But, I'm sure, I don't know if all of her staff works on commission, because she has 3 people, but, I don't know, I can't speak for her, but I do know that, we have people like Jamie, myself, who have done development. You have Tamara, the real estate agent herself,
Yeah.
who's on MLS. I was talking with her the other day. She can see the listing and what our agent is listing online, and she has ideas of things that could be this way or that way. But it's a nuanced building. Like if you go inside, it's really kind of quite impressive once you fix the windows. You know, there's not a whole ton, but at the same time, how do you price out what you don't know? And I think to that point, I probably should create some sort of thing for the board to see is, you know, does it need a roof? Does it need a heating system? Does it need kitchens and bathrooms? Is it done or not? Which most of these things are gonna be no for our properties. So most of our properties are all development buildings. But the pricing of it, which I've sort of sent to you guys in email, different listings from Zillow, that you see buildings that are ripe for development are going from 30 to 80. I mean, if you filter on Zillow for buildings under 100,000 in the city of Troy, there's not a lot out there. And even in the city's last tax foreclosure list, there was only 3 buildings that had walls, you know, like otherwise it was vacant sites where there might be a foundation in the ground, but filled in because they knocked out a building. So there's not a lot of inventory in the city, and so, but there is enough comps and institutional knowledge where I think we can come up with an idea for sale. We can also hire an appraisal.
I mean, my only thought of, it's worth a try,
Yeah.
right? Like, what's the downside? And my only thought about downside is, well, is our
Is he
realtor
gonna get
gonna
upset?
get a bent out of shape, you know, because
Well,
I don't know what, otherwise what we lose the month of December and maybe January.
Yeah.
I think that's like the slowest month anyway, so, you know.
Yeah.
What's the risk? I don't see,
Mhm.
I mean, not that,
Do we know how much we have in that property?
It's in QuickBooks, what we have into it,
Yeah.
and as well as the roof, $22,000.
Yeah.
But I have to caution ourselves to think pricing it based on what we have into it, because I think that if it was that way, we wouldn't really function as a.
well, yeah, no, I mean, that's not.
Yeah.
It's always been aware of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a point of reference.
So the way it works is as we do capital improvements to our properties, you'll see this in the income statement. The more Paul executes these contracts, it's gonna seem like we're making tons of money because we're getting grant money at the top line revenue, but we're not having an expense because it's actually capitalized on our balance sheet. So it's gonna look like the money came in as revenue, so we're making tons of money, and then also we have tons of assets because we're trading the grant from the state for assets on the balance sheet. When we sell is when you'll start to see a write-down expense of the work we've done extra. So when we put a roof on it, I think we just spent 22,000 on the roof.
change.
We're gonna put a roof on it. Now, say we had 40,000 into it already, now it says 62 is our capitalization. And then say we sell it for 50, we're gonna have an expense for $12,000 with no way to offset that expense. We're gonna have cash flows of $50,000, but that's not on the income statement. So in QuickBooks, it does list what it's worth, and every year the attorney or the auditors are going to help us write down some of the value. But the beautiful thing about the land bank is we can take the state money and fix up buildings and make them investable for people.
Yeah.
So it definitely, so far, we've got probably $3,000 or $1,000, or I forget what Trey's was, but we had Trey's got the backyard and we put the roof on it. That's all we've done.
So can I take 17 Park list for sale, recommendation to the board to, all in favor?
Yeah.
With price to be determined.
Right, yeah, I think we determined it at the full board meeting. And again, and the board can weigh in too, whether they think it goes to the realtor or we list it.
Do you have any thoughts on what you want to list it for?
Hmm?
Do you guys have any thoughts on what you should list it for?
Well, I think when we get into this application, you can see at least, this applicant's mechanism for figuring out how he made an offer to us. And I think those numbers are crazy, what he's listed to us to guide us for the future, but so I think if we can make 50,000 on the building, we'd be in a good place. If we could probably do 75. But if you remember in our last meeting, my theory was I didn't want a ton of people applying for our buildings right away. So I listed them a little higher than maybe, and just to see what kind of action we're getting.
Yeah.
Because I didn't actually know the process. So if we have a bunch of people applying with an application that doesn't qualify, then
But no, what, like you guys know this building better than anybody.
yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm going to create pictures for you guys for the next board meeting. and you'll be able to see it.
Maybe a suggested range or something.
Yeah,
Recommend.
yeah, well, and to that point, I think we'll probably, me, you, Tamara will go down there. I'll take pictures and I'll provide them in digital formats. You guys can sort of look them over.
Yeah.
And then, and
Make it
then,
easy for the board, like give us, go in a range.
yep,
I look at that property pretty simply, honestly. I think that if someone were to acquire it for 70,000, and even if they put $100,000 into the building, you're still at 85,000 a door, which is still a moneymaker in the city of Troy, based on the rents that you could.
yeah,
I think we
And
as
that's
a
just
board,
me thinking out loud. That's all it is.
yeah, I'm gonna recommend a high number. If there was a range, say 50 to 75, I'm just gonna recommend 75. So somebody's gonna negotiate it down.
I
Yeah.
think we as a board should be,
Totally.
we should be happy walking away with 50. In
I think
mind,
so.
right?
Well,
But yes, it should be high, because when we start at 50, we're gonna walk away with it.
Yeah.
So, next topic of business will be the application for 3215 Sixth Ave.
So I provided at least the write-up here. And I sent this digitally, but one thing I made a mistake when I sent it digitally was I scanned the whole application, but there was a front and back side to each page.
Mm.
And I caught that one time, but there was 4 total pages. And I originally sent 2 and then I sent 3, but the 4th page wasn't in there. And it was, that was a mistake I made in terms of sending it. So I think it's like the 2nd and 4th page are probably the more new to the board. I think that's what it was. And maybe it's the 3rd page, I think, actually. 3rd page is probably the most interesting. And the applicant says the bank will lend 70% of the home's value, so that's how he figured out. He went backwards in terms of his rehab costs and what it would be at the end and what he's hoping for a developer fee. And then he's guaranteeing the affordable housing at the property as outlined below. That's on the 3rd page. And then giving context to the applicant's own interest in the property is that he owns buildings in that neighborhood.
How many units is this?
This was a halfway. So I think the applicant's proposing to take it from a single, like sort of commercial. It's really 2 floors, but it was sort of a commercial. They had 1 meter, 1 gas line, 1 heating system, 1 hot water tank, and he's planning to create 2 units out of it. The 2 meters, 2 gas lines, 2 heaters, new roof,
Flats or side by side?
flats. Yep. And so the full application is actually in here. The checks are in there, but the check is listed to our old attorney for escrow. Obviously, wouldn't it be
And what's the offer?
40,000?
And the application is complete?
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely ask for specific portion.
I mean, I can take your word for it. I just.
Right, of course, but in,
And what did we have this listed for?
I put it, like I said, 100,000.
Me, looking at this, if he can get this place
6 months.
up and running for 100 grand,
You don't think so?
then
No, he's saying.
Well, this
seems
fits-
quick, 6 months.
This particular building is all sheet rock. Still. That's one of the, if you remember back to our A&D meeting, the ones we listed are closest to the finish line and most stable of our building. All the sheet rock, the kitchens and baths are relatively laid out, so I assume most of the sewer lines are gonna be in good shape. Definitely need.
No, that's one of his things. I don't know how much that is. Replumbing drain lines.
Yeah,
It's interior, I would guess interior.
yeah,
I mean, none of this crazy stuff, but.
yeah, and so there's a contract here. The contract we provided required, there was like a couple things that didn't make any sense. Like the buyer acknowledges that the deed to the property shall have restricted use of the property as a side lot. To give to him, so he struck that out. Or like title deed buyer acknowledges that the seller obtained title of property following a municipal tax foreclosure proceeding. And I believe this one was purchased from like the halfway house. I don't know the name of that organization.
That's the,
Vesta. So those two things were struck out of the contract, but there is a contract executed waiting for a signature. Enforcement mortgage here. At the back, but he kept the pages that
how long have we owned this one?
I don't think very long. No,
This was,
I think this was part of the legacy bundle.
but if it was Vesta, it was acquired when they did, Habitat did stuff on River Street, right? Around that time? Cause
They
they,
only got those lots, maybe?
the lots, the halfway house next to it. And then this one came with, I think there was like 3 properties.
834, 836. Well, yeah, we have proof of a line of credit. Typical lease.
That is in there, the lines that he speaks of in here. Listen, if he can get this thing done for 100 grand and he owns stuff on the block, more power to him. I will make a motion to recommend 3215 Sixth Ave up to the board for a review of the application.
What was our original listing price based on? I mean, I know you said you made them high. Do you remember what your considerations were about that?
Well, I made a mistake on this one about the roof. I thought the roof was in good shape, but I also just knew that nothing was on the market under 100,000 at the time. And so I just took what I thought we could get and probably 2 times or 1.5 times the amount,
So we probably own this for.
Yeah. And we don't have any other, I mean, I know we don't,
But it hasn't been for sale.
Right.
Which is just recent.
Right. And,
We haven't gotten any.
I had shown it to another person, the person that was interested in 33256 Ave, or that finished the project of 33256 Avenue that we sold them. They had finished and I told them we have a whole bunch up for sale and they were looking for another project. They want to partner with us again. I even asked them, are you interested in putting an offer in? They didn't respond to me.
and this was only listed on our.
Yep. Obviously with the social media blast, like pushing a little harder, we can drum up more interest. With more pictures, it'd be better, but I've offered to show to anybody that wanted to see it.
Mhm.
And different people have different interests, The person that has an application that's incomplete for 834, 836 River Street is, they are coming into town and they did ask about this one and the other one on 6th Ave. So maybe they want to see it too.
We can counter it too.
Yeah, we're
I mean,
all,
I'm not like taking it, I just want to make sure I'm aware of whatever.
we're only reviewing the application. Right, at the board,
Well,
That's
no,
all.
I mean,
We'd make a recommendation.
you make a
To the
recommendation.
board.
That's what I'm saying.
That we accept the offer or not.
And then I sign, and when the board votes on it, I'd sign the contract and it's in the attorney's hands to execute the contract.
Do we know what Adam's properties, are they all maintained and decent?
I mean, from my experience.
So he's just south of the building we just talked to, about the wooden,
Well, this is right across the street.
no, I'm saying,
Okay,
of the
okay,
wooden,
yeah.
that new 4 unit, and it fits all in the landscape of that. So that
Yeah.
block, his stuff there looks pretty.
Yeah.
From the outside, visually, everything is up, taken care of, new facades, paint, it's clean.
One thing to mention is, if you recall, when we had to clean all the trash out of 3209 and 3211, I sent the video of all the trash in the backyard Trace took out. And Trace was able to back his dump trailer over that 3 unit or 6 unit that was back there. That is if you go from 3209 and you go to the property there, that's, the applicant's property there, 3216, and then 3215 is right there as well. So in that area, we own properties on both sides of them. It's obviously his land is open enough where you can back a dump trailer to the backyard free and clear. So it's cleaned up and that sort of stuff. Not without maybe a kid's toy here and there. Tenants,
And then he's subject to all the,
right, signed all that.
I mean, I don't, I don't
Yeah,
have a sense of what kind of money we're looking for to get out of it. I just don't have that sense.
Sure.
yeah, I'm sort of the same place.
If he's gonna do it, that's a win.
Yeah, and so just being very clear about the process that it seemed like he took and maybe most developers would take. He took what he thought that the amount of money it would be worth at the end. And similar to the legacy program, where the legacy program afforded a developer fee, most banks will only loan you on loan to value. And his required rate of return for sweat equity or what have you is to basically be able to finance all the money he's put into the rehab and pull his money back out, which is a real estate method called the BRRRR method. You buy, you rehab, you renovate, you rent it out, and then you refinance it, which is the BRRRR acronym. And the idea is that if it's worth 200,000 and the bank will give you 170,000 out of it, which is 85% loan to value, you get your 15% developer fee in equity. Then you owe 170 and you pull your money back out, you pay off your hard money lenders, and then you let the rent sort of pay down the note. So you actually, you put your effort and your time in collaborating everything, but you aren't out any of your physical money at the end of your, when you're successful.
Yeah.
And banks aren't gonna loan until you get rid of the enforcement mechanism at that point. So that's the method he's outlined. So he said, this is how much it takes me to fix the building. These are the things I'm gonna do, and that's the write-up he's given you. And then he says, what's the difference between what I expect to cash out refinance versus what my money I'm putting into it, and that's the money that he'd have to get it so that he can achieve his goals as a developer.
What do you think of the 40?
I think that it's good for us to create housing for the city of Troy. I think 40,000 is fair. I was surprised that it was that high. I mean, that was my reaction when you first looked at the application. Because I didn't think that people who have bought from the city of Troy in the past for $1,000 or $5,000 would recognize that the new landscape is that they're not $1,000 or $5,000 anymore for dilapidated buildings. I think they're at least $25,000, and I think that's probably the minimum. Like something like 785 River Street, where we just put $20,000 into the roof. I think as a 3-unit shell, it's worth $25,000. I think we're actually cash flow positive, even though other people will be used to $1,000. Just get it for free almost. Everybody's looking for the land bank to sort of give them the properties for next to nothing, but I think that our city is going to have a really successful run at solving the vacant building problem. I think better than most people want to invest in Troy.
Good, but
Can I get a second then to?
Oh, yeah, second.
All in favor?
So we'll move that to the full board.
I have something for old business.
As a matter of fact, close it, freezing.
You just got to touch the latch to keep it open, the top part.
I got a 10 o'clock at the office.
Just-
Yeah, I'm feeling like it's getting late too.
The old business, 791, we got an offer for 799.9.
$299
I'm sorry,
or $300.
270, initially 279.9, countered with 350. The purchaser said their ceiling is 300. My recommendation from this committee is that we at least accept the offer so that we can
No, accept that.
accept that 300 offer so we can at least get an application from them to see who this person
What
is.
the story is.
You know?
Yeah.
We don't have to accept the offer, 300 offer.
Yeah.
But we can accept the number
And
now
entertain that.
to get an application.
Yeah.
Where if we don't, then
So the message to the offer is,
give us an
we'd like
application.
to review
Yeah.
your full application
Correct.
before proceeding.
Correct.
That would be my floor, absolute floor.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
I mean,
where I'm at.
It's, I know we want to get rid of it.
But that's a-
But, I mean, it seems like a little bit of time to see what we get.
Yeah.
It's worth a little bit of time.
So my question was, does it still stay active while we're reviewing the application? And it's 100%. So we
I mean, you
lose
can still
nothing.
list it, right?
We lose nothing.
We're signaling to them that we'll be willing to look at your application to see if
Yeah.
maybe your story's compelling versus, you know, if somebody wants to live there and start a business downstairs and they need room to develop the downstairs business that they want to create. And they are, one thing that's, by being affordable only, you can't have an owner occupied move in unless the price is able to get a loan for them. Because they can't afford it. They don't
Well,
qualify.
I say, make sure there's a 3. The first number is a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
99.
No, not, yeah. Make it 301, just to be safe. So can I get a motion to recommend to the board to accept it?
You don't want to recommend it to the board. You want the motion to,
We can just accept
We
it.
no, you're making a motion to tell Leah to come back to us. The board doesn't.
We don't have to, okay,
The A and D committee
does, okay.
is basic. You can make a motion that says Leah should provide us with a full application. We will consider that application. It's not a dead end.
I'd like to make a motion to allow Brad to receive an application from the 300,000, 791. All in favor?
Aye.
Second,
And so I'll bring that to the next A and D committee,
okay.
which is January 6th.
Should we mention that to the board? Just
We can at the next meeting.
Just
That's what I meant by bringing that to get it passed. You can now go to Lee and say, give me that.
Yeah, the A and D committee's talk.
If we get the application, we can show that to the board in 2 weeks, right? That's what I thought.
We okay with new business?
I don't think.
I got a couple one-liners. So obviously our grant expired 12/1. I applied for an extension. If we get an extension, I would love to discuss with the A and D committee in the next meeting some potential ideas I have with some of the properties that we currently own. You know, obviously in the next board meeting, we're gonna move forward with 6 RFPs. That is as well, if she gives us the extension for those projects, there's a chance we have to cancel those projects if we don't get the extension. But in the time being, there's a possibility that we'll have $1.4 million. And it would require the A and D committee to essentially
How much?
1.4 million. There's a potential to extend that. And if there is, the A and D committee might make a move to take properties that we've earmarked for sale and put them into land bank for development. And namely, I should mention, just off the cuff, I sent to HCR that 33406 Avenue is one of our buildings we have for sale, brand new roof. We could probably get that to the finish line for a couple $100,000 and sell it to an owner occupied person, move-in ready with an apartment downstairs type thing. 834, 836 River Street, we have an application that's incomplete, but again, one of the 3 units is complete sheetrock on the wall. We can do the same thing we want. The other one's a gut rehab. But I even had an idea for 871 River Street where it's a bar downstairs and an apartment upstairs at the corner, and there's development sites to the side of it. The development sites to the side of it, the vacant lots we have are large enough to accommodate a bunch of ideas. We talked with Barb Nelson at TAP, and there's also like the space to do something crazy like the condo project she's working on. There's enough space to put her project in the same footprint as our spot. That's not necessarily saying that's my idea, but it is saying that, we don't have $10 million in funding, which is what she's talking about. But these are years down the road. In the meantime, one idea I did potentially have is 871 River Street is the bar downstairs and the rental unit upstairs. If we have the funding from HCR, we could redevelop that and allow that, not on a bar, say, but we could put our land bank offices in a building like that and create a conference room big enough where we're not jam packed in and we can have our meetings there. These are just some ideas. Yeah, I've walked through worse. I've walked through worse.
Right, I've been trying to convince him that, so if we can make it pretty, let's do it.
I've been
Let me
through
go on
worse.
record. Okay.
Obviously, before we decide one way or the other, we have to get the extension, the money, the money is gonna be extended in some capacity. If not, we have to reapply and then we'll get new money, but the idea of these things are just potentials.
Yeah.
And strategies predicated on us getting the extension.
You know, if you can get a co-developer,
Mhm.
we own that corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get a co-developer to do like the housing,
Mhm.
you know, development, and we can take the ground floor piece of it.
Brian, my opinion is,
Like,
I would love to do what Barb was doing there. We went down south with her. That footprint is it the exact same? It's the exact footprint.
Maybe not as wide.
Yeah, sorry,
And
the
she-
model project she's working on?
Yeah,
condos, owner occupied condos.
yeah. And which-
That changes the whole,
Once you finish one, you can sell it, you know, that,
I know it's pie in the sky.
yeah. But at the same time, they even have the same situation where the corner between Washington,
Yes.
was it?
Are there any, like, condo
No,
in
it's
Troy?
nowhere.
I can run, I'm sorry.
No, it's for next
That's,
time, it's
that's
just that
really
leasing.
interesting. I mean, I have no idea, right?
Right,
On that note, I talked to Matt,
yeah.
10 grand.
Hmm.
Outside of our, whatever the agreement
That's what the
would
lawyer fees are. to
That's
create
what he-
association-
he-
association.
be, he could do it for 10.
Okay, that's what they.
So just,
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell Barb that, because I guarantee. White man,
Tell anyone,
Ulster House and Hanneman. a lot more.
Yeah, yeah. But these are just ideas, outside of just blocking and tackling and
Love ideas.
when they come
Yeah.
up.
Well, you know, start of the year, great time to,
That's
think
right.
about the year and ask for money and planning, and
We gotta get
it's
the,
easy to just focus on the immediate, everything all the
Yeah.
time. It's hard to get that.
Truthfully, our grant technically expired yesterday and I'm not sure if they were working last week, you know, at
Yeah.
HCR, but my request for extension could be granted at any time. So if it is,
Yeah.
depending on what they say,
It comes through.
but like I said, there, when I was at the Land Bank Association, they had $110 million and only 12 million was spent. So they're looking for ways
Yeah.
to spend.
It's good, good place to be.
can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On the
All right.
next meeting, January 6th,
Oh,
as long as everybody's good with that.
yeah.
That's a Monday. Monday after.